And welcome to the Radical World podcast. I'm Jose Leal. Today I'm joined by Joanna Staniszewska. I almost did it, didn't I? Almost did it. We were just talking about how to pronounce that in sort of the Russian dialect. Stani means to stand, and I'm used to that. Um, and and so I keep thinking that that's the way that I'm going to pronounce it. So it means to stand up. So here you go. Stand up and be heard. Um, welcome, Joanna, to the Radical World podcast. Thank you for being here. More importantly, thank you for adding your voice to this radical world of ours. And I wonder if you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us why you so interesting to talk to. Why your voice should be heard in this radical world.
First of all, Jose and Carlos, not visible here, thank you so much for the invitation. We know Jose each other for a longer time, and we had many conversations like this before. Maybe not many, but few.
Yeah.
And why should I be here? Because we are sharing a lot, not everything. Thanks God. Because then we would not be diverse. We could not exchange. And I'm here because I'm bringing something to you. What I bring my experience and knowledge, and from very early stage. When I was a child, I was living in Libya for 3.5 years. As a child, I remember accepting everything that was coming. The different culture was not different for me. It was like it was. It was different for my parents who were from a different culture, and they were comparing everything to the culture they lived at the moment. Then I had a chance to have a 5 months trip to US as a teenager. And it was in the moment when communism collapsed in Poland.
Oh.
And everything was like crazy big in America. We had small cinemas, you had multiplexes as we have now in Poland. And they were, of course, I was perceiving it as a teenager, so it was important for me. Different things were important for me, not as I would look around today, but it also gave me another perspective. And through the life, I had also a chance to travel in different places for a shorter time and see how beautifully different we are. And it also gave me an opportunity to learn more about cultures also in a communication aspect. I wrote one piece for Austrian University's conference, Universal Means of Communication, and I was trying to explore, is there any universal means, meaning human level communication that is beyond language. I had a wonderful conversation with Francois recently. I hope he's watching. He signed in on LinkedIn about the languages. He used to teach languages also, and he's also prone to many different cultures. And we both were talking about how much language is keeping us aside of many things that are explored in other cultures. Like they say, people of North have so many descriptions of snow that we cannot imagine. Yeah. So this is just one example. And also we discovered that if we are in certain culture, we are thinking in this language. We are probably you had the same because you are, yeah, not many people know it, especially those who don't know many languages and are not exposed to the culture with the certain language for a longer time. So that was also something that showed us that with Francois, that there are changes in us that we even don't. Sometimes it's easier to say something in one language, not so easy in another language. And that means that we, as a different cultures, are pieces of puzzles, and we can. I hope technology will help us, but unless you feel the culture and language, it's intangible. It's in us. So that is the field that I'm exploring on myself and also with other people, and like Francois. And this is what I would like to combine also with this conscious communication, meaning that we know that our communication is impactful and in which way. When we realize that, we can, of course, check in ChatGPT information about how impactful is negative communication and how impactful is good communication. And I have bad news.
I wonder if I can jump in because there's two things that strikes for me what you've just said, and thank you for sharing that. Because when I was a kid in high school, I was very involved. I was an immigrant myself from Portugal into the United States, and I was very involved in a community that was very diverse here in California, and we had a lot of exchange students. We had a lot of immigrants. And so I was surrounded by multiple languages, by multiple cultures, by all of that. And it felt natural to me. But it was interesting. Now that I connect with some of my colleagues from school, decades later, I won't say how many decades, that their life was different. Their experience of school was different because they were in their clique. And it may have been that they were in their Chinese clique, or they may have been in their English, American clique, but it was a different experience for them of the diversity that culture had. So it's even within a diverse culture, that a lot of people don't have the diversity. And I think that kind of describes what we're experiencing in work. Because in most organizations, there's a consolidation of work, the work culture. But there's also those cliques where some people sort of have their own little environment and their own little way of living. And so, as you know, we call the current way of work the Fiat system, or the Fiat way of working. And I think that what I'm sort of sensing in us, and you and I, the diversity that you describe, is that diversity doesn't always break into the mainstream culture of work. Right? That the mainstream culture of work seems to be sort of homogenous. Does that feel right to you? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Before answering this question, I would love to ask you to say more or less what's Fiat model, because I had to learn it recently, thanks to you. And when I put it in a Google, I found the model of Fiat in a quite a different way. So please.
Yeah. So it was actually Matt Perez, the my partner on Radical World, who coined the term. And it was when we were writing the book, the Radical Companies book, where we were talking about the fact that the system of work that we live in is built on a whole bunch of assumptions. And those assumptions are really about having to control the people in the organization, to control the system of the organization, and to dictate what needs to happen and how it needs to happen, because there's a perception, there was a perception as we started to create these types of organizations that we live in today, that it must be commanded and controlled in order for them to be functional. Of course, this was 100 plus years ago, 200-300 years ago, where there were people who were educated and there were people who weren't. And most organizations in those days were made up of these two classes, the educated class and the uneducated class. And so Fiat really is about this understanding that we modeled our system of work on royalty, that there is a king of the organization, and that king or queen has the power to dictate what's going to happen. And that's held on. Like, we've got rid of kings and queens in most of our countries, but we haven't gotten rid of kings and queens in our organizations, right? And so Fiat is really about describing a system where individuals have the power to rule the organization from on high by fiat, by dictate. And so what we realized is that our system of work isn't just accepted, that's okay, even though it's not okay in our democratic countries, but it's okay within an organization. We walk in and we give up our freedom, we give up our autonomy, and we become subjects of the rulers of the organization. So that's how we describe Fiat as not just an organization, but the whole system of thinking that leads up to us being, we're graduating college and we're like, oh, I need to go become an employee for somebody. And I need to find a place that's going to be a nice employer. Like, that whole mindset of being an employee is tied to that Fiat system of thinking. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you for explaining that. I believe it's new to many people, like it was for me. I agree with you. I wrote recently an article on LinkedIn exactly from the what's going on underneath the recruitment and HR. And it was the paradox that from one hand, we want creative people who are brave, who think independently. And from the other hand, if we recruit people, we accept only those who fit. So, like, what kind of change do we expect to have with the people that fits?
Right.
This is just one of the examples, we play this game and we don't sense the nuances of it and the paradoxes, as I said, which is unfortunately putting people in the frames and constraints that they cannot be themselves, which is also about authenticity and professionalism. I was also writing about that, which means that they are not free, as you said. What it implicates? It implicates that they put the hands up and they, okay, give me something. And I heard one of the bosses saying, I need to load them up. And I said, please don't load me up, because I'm loading up myself. And this is the mentality of, if I will not give them the task, this kind of micromanagement, they will not work. Right. But if look at the people that they have own sense, also they want to have fun out of work. So they will look for things that they like. Why we put them in a job they don't like to do? Why we don't fit to people? And people fits to organizations. So this means that that would be great to give people freedom. They will know what to do. They will learn how to do it by themselves, because they will feel responsibility and they will be people that we can rely on.
And
I
it's
don't even say employee because it's another label.
exactly, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. The idea of being an employee to me has become disgusting because it really means to be used by someone,
Mhm.
right? That's how we say the word comes from, to employ a tool,
Mhm.
to use a tool, and
Resource.
to use a resource, to employ a resource. And humans aren't resources.
Mhm.
Humans are not resources. Humans are parts of nature, parts of life that are here to serve life. And we've created a structure, a system where we think of ourselves as tools to be employed by organizations. So we've put the organization above ourselves. And then the organization's purpose, whatever that might be, becomes ours because we have to adopt a purpose. We have to
Mhm.
align with the
Mhm.
organization's
Yeah.
purpose. And today's organizations, primarily their purpose is to make money, right?
Yeah.
And we've lost sight of what it is as human beings we feel we need. And we don't, back to the point of today's conversation, we don't communicate about our needs as human beings. We communicate about the purpose of the organization, or the function of the organization, not even the purpose very often. Um, as we say, well, we have to serve that for the organization, or we will get fired, or we won't get promoted, or we because it's all about us serving it rather than us serving ourselves and serving life in general. Does that align with what you've been thinking about and what you've been doing?
Yes, I would say even that I would ask why it is like this, and I have an answer, very short answer, and we'll be happy to hear what you want to say on that. Mostly, we are not aware of any other thoughts we may have. We are not connected with ourselves, understood by mind, body, and some people say soul, by emotions. We don't know. We are emotions. We don't recognize emotions. We are often unable to stand aside and see, oh, I'm angry. you know Not being angry, yeah, at the
Right.
moment we're saying, assessing that. Do I want to be angry? No, I don't. I know techniques to change it. No, this is not the path. So what I'm catching myself with is that I'm saying what I think, blah blah blah, and people don't understand why it's not in the mainstream, because people are not yet there. They don't understand sometimes what we are talking about. Like, yes, how? Because we do as children development leaps. Yeah, leaps, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like linear. Yeah, it's like, whoa, I just understood something. That's awesome. Oh wow, I feel it. Oh, I don't feel fear anymore. This kind of feelings are around us. So I'm curious how you perceive it, but because I would just summarize it that the first work is work inside of us, and the next step is caring about ourselves, being assertive, not arrogant in perception of others.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are ready to stand out and be with others, not talk, not necessarily talk.
I think I would have said that's what I believed a few years ago. That what you just said is exactly how I saw it. Um, I no longer feel that that's really what does happen or what needs to happen.
Mhm.
I think it all happens simultaneously. That the way that I learned to be better able to judge and manage and regulate myself
Mhm.
is with people like you showing me that that's how I do it, and that I'm showing you that that's how we do it, and that personal self-regulation and group self-regulation, there's no separation between the two. It's not that I can do it independently in some back room and then show up and say, I've already done my personal development, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Right? That I can meditate for 5 years and show up and say, oh, look, because I don't think we can integrate in self-develop if we personally develop with people who haven't been part of that journey. It's a combination of these things, and I don't think you meant that way, that I have to go do it and then come show up. But I think it's important that we really highlight the fact that it is communal, that that the way we develop ourselves about understanding everything you said, I agree with, about understanding our feelings, about understanding why our feelings are there, how our feelings self-regulate on our behalf, right? They're trying to help us move through the world. And sometimes they're wrong, and sometimes they're very, very right, and we're not listening, and we're not paying attention. And when this process of evolution of us as human beings, as you said, in stages that happen throughout our lives, isn't happening in collaboration, then we're not in sync with those people around us. And then we run into issues the other way around, where it's like, yes, I've started this process of evolving, but it hasn't been done in my community. So now I'm out of sync with my community. And so I think it has to happen as an individual, as a group, and as an organization together. Not all at the same time, not all in the same process, but it has to be a communal process. Because if it's not a communal process, then I think we're creating dysfunction again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you for pointing it out. Actually, I didn't say that we need to do it alone.
Yeah. I know you didn't, but it feels like it's a
good point, because it could be received that way. So thank you for that. I absolutely agree. My journey, my own journey, was also, and it's still about being and talking with other people. And I'm still exposed to something I don't understand, doesn't make sense to me. It's bothering me. And thanks to feeling and knowing that it can be different, I can stand it. Because I know everyone is on their own journey, and not everyone will evolve as we would like to. Some will not even try. And accepting it is a big relief, because then you can just be a living example. You don't have to say anything. You just can show people. I mean, show is by a product. Yeah, it's not the goal itself.
It's not telling them or teaching.
No. But just being the way we learn to be. This is, I think, enriching for others.
The idea that that we're going through a process ourselves as individuals, and we're working in organizations that dictate to us how we should be, creates a rupture, in my view. A rupture between our ability to grow and to connect, and to be a part of community in a connection that is authentic. Because we, one, can't be ourselves Two, we have to always have an ear out for what the expectation is from our boss, from their boss, from the organization as a whole, and we're never in a place where we can actually be ourselves. One of the things that we talk about as a radical company is that we have to self-manage, but self-manage or co-manage, as we prefer to say, because it's really not about just the self, right? It is about a community management. That as we're doing that, we can't be in an environment where there is ultimately somebody who can pull the pin on this self-regulation. And so how do we have an organization that allows for the freedom for us to be ourselves, to actually co-manage together, co-regulate, when at the end of the day, there's a person or a group of people who have the reins of an organization. So we say it's not only about co-managing, but also co-owning.
Yeah.
Because the co-ownership gives us that freedom to do that exploration. We can't do it in absence of that. Human beings are amazing at recognizing that someone else has control, has power, and that we need to respect that power because we're at risk. And that natural propensity as human beings, like every other animal, right? Every other animal that's a pack animal pays attention. Who's doing what? Where are they at? And am I going to risk being smacked upside the head, right? And in today's world, being smacked upside the head doesn't really happen physically, but you can get demoted, you cannot get promoted, you can get fired, you can, be thrown off into some other project. And those things are keeping us back from really connecting with each other because we're more worried about playing the game than we are about being genuine. So I don't think in today's organizations, as they sit, we can actually be ourselves. That we can only be ourselves when we transform ourselves and transform the structure of the organization to support that being ourselves. It's both.
Let me share about my company, where we created something like this that you describing. How it happened? First, good recruitment. So paying attention to something more than just skills. And it's more than soft skills, something values, something the 4D, not for fifth D dimension. Then trust people. It's like horrible thing to think about.
Exactly.
Trust people, and then if they have the freedom, their own kingdom, let's say, they take responsibility. They are delivering on time. They are doing good job, and they are happy of the outcomes, and they are happy being part of the bigger ones. And it happened to me. I'm blessed with this experience, and then I know it's possible with the all team recently that I had. And it was wonderful feeling because we were breathing, you know what I mean, together. We were being together. We were like on a flow permanently. We were caring about each other. So like different verbs and nouns are coming here, as we used to use in hierarchy, that you described, the atavism that we have, being under someone and waiting for orders, actually. So this we are too serious playing this game.
Yeah.
We don't see it's a game. We are actually in the game. playing the role.
And even and what I love is when I talk to people who say, well, no, my boss is a good boss, and they're not micromanagers, they're okay. But there's this subtle force that we don't pay attention to. There's evidence, scientific evidence, of blood pressure changing from being at home to walking into the office. That we're in a much more heightened state of awareness because it's an environment of threat. It's an environment that is risky. You could say the wrong thing, be in the wrong place, do the wrong, and any of those things are impacting us. And we don't see it.
What about solution? What to do? How to live?
So the solution, we argue, I mean, that's what Radical World is saying. The solution is up to us. We don't have to change the current system. We don't have to go and say, let's go to a corporation and change that corporation and make them better. They're going to be as good or as bad as they're going to be. We can't change that. And forcing them to change it isn't going to help. But what we can do is create new organizations that, like you described, that you experienced, that are radical organizations that see that what drives our desire to work is not the fact that I've got a boss who's going to pay me. It's the fact that I have an innate desire to create, an innate desire.
Fulfillment. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what drives me. That's what drives, in different ways, different people, which is good. It doesn't have to be the same. In the current system, money drives everybody, because if you don't work, you can't survive. What if we have a system that was driven not by the fact that we're employed, but the fact that we are contributing to a community that we co-own and co-manage, the fact that it is meaningful, that we feel like we belong, that we're exercising all of these human abilities in ways that are really human.
I was sorry for interrupting.
No, please.
I would add playfulness, which sounds weird, but
that's very human.
We killed it along with our childhood.
Yes.
And it still can be enriching us and giving us pleasure. Yeah.
And it's not just human. That's the amazing thing. Jaak Pensep, a researcher who's passed away now, I guess 4 or 5 years ago, they called him the rat tickler. Okay. Because he was the first to discover that rats and other animals also laugh the way we do when they play. We can't hear it because it's a different sound that's, I can't remember, higher or lower than we're capable of hearing, but they can. And the act of play in mammals is a consistent thing. And we stopped playing because work is serious. And that, I think, is another thing that is detrimental in our thing. Yes, work is serious. It is so serious that we should enjoy it as we're doing this serious work, not so serious that we don't allow ourselves to enjoy it, don't allow ourselves to be personal with one another and have attachments and connections with people that are genuine. We've stopped connecting with people because that is a risk to the work. Right? If we connect with people, we'll get hurt when they leave. People will see that we're too chummy with someone in our work group, and that's not good because they're too chummy. That's good. That causes risks. I think the whole idea that collaboration in today's organizations is possible is completely and utterly impossible. We cannot really genuinely connect with people in unsafe environments. And today's organizations are unsafe in many more ways than we describe. It's not just about gender safety. It's not just about being threatened. It's not just about these types of really obvious outward safe or unsafe. But it is unsafe to walk into an organization that's a Fiat organization by default.
Toxic
It's
for
toxic.
our mental health, but not only. Yeah, because
Exactly.
then the mental health goes to the body, and body is also saying no.
Exactly. And we talk about burnout and the increase of burnout, and we talk about the increase of the number of people who are disengaged at work. Well, how can you be engaged when you're not connected? When you're not engaged?
Yeah.
And you're not being asked to be engaged. You're asked to do your job, get it done, leave, that's it. People are working together, spending so many hours together, and yet they don't have a relationship.
Yeah.
That's inhuman. That's not life itself. To stop having connections with one another in a human way.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would love to say more. I know that the time is running, but I would love to say more about communication to be back to the topic.
Yeah.
I love this flow that we are all always touching what needs to be touched at the very moment. So I totally comfortable with that. But communication is something that I feel we are missing, which is the way we are connecting with the world, and the way we are building relationship, and the way we impact the world. We even don't know how we are doing it. So that would be great to touch also.
Yeah, no, and I think that the conversation so far has really led to that, because my concern is that the type of communication that we talk about, the level of real communication that really drives the type of connection that's possible, has to be in an environment that allows for that level of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's the concern. It's both, have we matured enough as individuals, and has the environment that we're in become safe enough that that type of communication is possible? But tell us about the conversation that you're, or the type of communication that you're describing.
Yeah, it's again separating some piece out of something is distractional. It's not
Right.
it's in the environment, as you said, of organizations. So I see that being conscious is aware is the most important thing here, because while you are being aware of your communication, you can also be aware how it's impacting others. And for example, like between the words you are getting a response on email, like could you make a synthesis of it? So like, okay, very nice. Yeah, very nice, by the way. And yes, of course I may, and I know that in the future this person is not interested in all information, and I'm not blaming myself, I'm not blaming the other person, this is the fact. And this is also about environment, as you said, organization, but not only. It's about how because we have so much power being conscious, just by being conscious, not doing
Yep.
anything again. And that is also implicating awareness of the way we say the words we are using, the tone of voice, and everything else around it. So I would love to have some maybe questions from the audience sometime, and learn what they are concerned about.
Yeah, because I think the issue of communication from within a Fiat environment is a very different kind of thing. the environment sets the tone of how we can communicate.
Yeah, but it's fluid. Again, it's
Of course,
fluid.
of course,
Yeah,
of
you know
course.
what I mean. We
Yeah.
put a drop of happiness, we put a drop of sadness, we put a drop of consciousness,
Right. Right.
it changes. Yeah.
And all of that putting a drop of from different people in a different way, in a different environment, changes.
Yeah.
And it changes in ways that are not predictable.
Yeah.
Right. Which is the beauty of life itself.
Mm.
Because we've created systems that are so predictable that the novelty of life, the expression of something unique and new and right here, we've had a conversation. It's been 40 minutes that we've been having this wonderful conversation, and it's not gone the way that either of us planned.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think it creates an opportunity to have a follow-on conversation that builds on this one, that introduces a new way of doing it, because we've set the tone, we've set the ground in some way that's different than hopefully than having a conversation that stays so focused on the topic that it doesn't allow us to explore what really we're talking about.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's what we've done. And unfortunately, we've kind of gone beyond our 40-minute limit. But I'd love to have you back and to continue this conversation in a month or so, to engage in a conversation that really touches on more about the how and the why of communication, rather than the context of communication, which I think we did today.
Thank
Joanna,
you.
thank you. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for introducing this topic and for wanting to have this conversation and being willing to explore wildly as we did for the last 40 minutes. I really appreciate that. Next week, we've got Heather Wickman. She's the co-founder of Untethered, and will be joining us to talk about a radical world, as we do here, and learning a little bit about what Untethered's doing and what Heather's doing within that context. So we look forward to having Heather joining us next week. Again, Joanna, thank you so much. And I look forward to our continuing conversation in a future episode, and having an opportunity to dig a little deeper into connection and how we communicate better in that process.
All the best.
Thank you so much. Cheers.